The struggle for social justice did not start during the civil rights movement between the 1950s and 1960s, nor did it end there. But during this time, Black Americans sacrificed their lives to gain equal rights under law in the United States. While the Brown versus Board decision initiated this movement, there are many untold stories that were key contributors to justice. May 17, 1957. Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. No, this is not the March on Washington, where Martin Luther King proudly gave his I Have a Dream speech. This is the prayer pilgrimage for freedom. As you could expect, the Brown v. Board decision was not enforced everywhere. Therefore, Dr. King and members of the newly organized Southern Leaders Conference, later known as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, urged the Eisenhower administration to publicly condemn segregationists' unwillingness to comply with the Brown decision. They sent a telegram to the president demanding that if Eisenhower did not enforce the law in the South, quote, "We shall have to lead our people to you in the Capitol in order to call the nation's attention to the violence and organized terror directed towards men, women, and children merely seeking freedom." And what did he do? You guessed it. Eisenhower failed to make a public stand in favor of desegregation, so King Thomas Kilgore Jr., the national director of the pilgrimage, solicited financial contributions throughout the country to ensure a stand against the government and arranged for many different organizations to come and take part. This purposely coincided with the 3-year anniversary of the Brown v. Board decision to desegregate schools and was intended to put pressure on the Eisenhower administration to desegregate the South and promote voting rights. Now, why was this event important? It was the first large-scale march by African Americans in Washington, D.C., as there were about 25,000 people. Although it is less well known, Dr. King gave Give Us the Ballot speech denouncing voter suppression and racial violence, which solidified King's reputation as being the face of the movement at just 28 years old. Images from this day by Lee Friedlander show that the beginning of the civil rights movement was almost exclusively African American people, unlike the diverse pictures we are shown in later years. The fight for civil rights was waged predominantly by Black people. As shown, the audience is dressed formally in suits, ties, hats, gloves, and listening intently. Parents brought children, showing that the peace movement was founded on their pure intent for equal rights. It kind of makes you realize why this event is unknown. However, when there is peace, there is backlash. James Hicks of New York Amsterdam News wrote King was now the top Black leader and that the prayer pilgrimage was the idea of Martin Luther King alone, and no other Black leader in America was enthusiastic about it. This created tensions within African American communities, and although it highlighted Martin Luther King for being a national leader of this movement, it gave people against reform a name to target. Now, you know Martin Luther King, you know Malcolm X, you know Rosa Parks. But do you know Diane Nash? Well, she was born in May 15, 1938, in Chicago, Illinois. She was raised as a middle-class Catholic and went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., then went on to Fisk University in Nashville. There, she witnessed severe racial segregation, which initiated her to join the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee. This civil rights group was formed to give a voice to younger Black people in the civil rights movement while protesting nonviolently. While being involved, she was arrested on various occasions, but used the jail no bail tactics. This method was used across the board for Black people who were trying to nonviolently fight back. People remained in jail as a way of showing their refusal to accept an unjust system. Diane even spent jail time when she was pregnant with her first child for teaching nonviolent tactics to children. Diane was also part of the Freedom Riders, which were groups of African American and white civil rights activists who protested segregated bus terminals and used whites-only restrooms and lunch counters at bus stations. They faced lots of backlash from police and white protesters, but drew international attention to the civil rights movement. Nash organized and helped in many ways, and one of those include coordinating the Nashville Student Movement Ride from Birmingham, Alabama to Jackson, Mississippi in 1961, after learning of the bus burning in Anniston, Alabama. Also in 1961, Diane left college and became a full-time activist for Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She was also a key organizer in the Washington March in 1963. Contrary to popular belief, it was Diane's idea to start the Selma March in 1965, not Dr. King's. She had to persuade King to do it, and started organizing it without him. Through all of Diane's hard work, she was greatly recognized, which still doesn't even represent all her sweat and tears. She was appointed to the National Committee by JFK that promoted passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Dr. King awarded Nash and her husband SCLC's Rosa Parks Award for her contribution to civil rights. She was a recipient of the Distinguished American Award from JFK Library and Foundation in 2003. And she was awarded the LBJ Award of Leadership in Civil Rights. Diane is a key leader in American history who undoubtedly showed bravery and strength by fighting for equal rights for African American people, but also for Black women. She was her own leader and will continue to be an icon forever.
Though Nash is viewed as the only woman who held a consistent place in Dr. King's inner circle, she takes pride in having charted her own course.
I never considered Dr. King my leader. I always considered myself at his side, and I considered him at my side.